Hello, youth leaders, youth workers, and youth pastors. I'm James Sabin.
Hey, and I'm Todd Pearage, and you're watching and listening to the Youth Ministry Soul Keeper podcast.
That's right, a podcast of the Download Youth Ministry Network.
Man, we're so thankful for you. And if you haven't done it already, it would just be so cool if you would like and subscribe.
You can subscribe.
Can you?
Subscribe.
I don't know if
do
you
it.
can.
You can.
But
Make
it
it work.
means a lot to us. So if you can do that, and we thank you in advance.
Absolutely. So, Todd, man, you are here in Morgantown, West Virginia.
It's pretty great.
Yeah, it is. It's good it's good to do a podcast like just together.
Yep.
Just us, and not have to have a computer screen, over Wi-Fi connection. So
Right.
this is good.
Yeah.
This is good.
Yeah, this is fun.
Yep, we got Todd here. We're doing something called Neon Night. It was we have two big outreaches. We're calling it One Big Event, Two Great Nights. And it's something we've been building up since literally September, August, from the beginning, where we did kind of our youth ministry kickoff. We have kind of like a youth emphasis Sunday, and we kicked off just having kids, just be aware that they're called to be disciples who make disciples, and discipleship starts with the lost. And so just kind of a really big evangelism push that starts with we use Dare to Shares, a cause circle, prayer, care, share, and we've had kids from the beginning praying for opportunities then to care, and then praying for opportunities to share with their friends, and of course invite them, and kind of these big events are what it's about.
Right.
And so I asked Todd some time ago to speak at both, and he's got a very full schedule. If you follow Todd at all, speaking and doing retreats and conferences, and he was generous with his time, and we kind of had to move some stuff a little bit to make it happen. And
No, but it's so fun to go and hang with ministry friends, and especially in your context to see how everything works. And so, I'm excited to be here. Looking forward to a great night. And I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. And sorry, this time at our Neon Nights, we usually always have a Todd Pearage game, and we do not have a Todd Pearage game. We're doing clumps from DYM, which is and I don't know who does clumps. I wanted to say it's not Derry. Is it Derry?
I think it might be.
Okay, it is Derry. So Derry, shout out to you, I should say. Thank you for that. That's a classic, by the way, and it's a winner, and it's a great, just kind of, you want to get kids moving and interacting and kind of get the energy up. Clumps is a great way to do that. So I recommend that. We've used it for years since it's been out. And then then we're playing like a kind of made up homemade blender challenge game, and
fun.
That's going to be a lot of fun. And of course, all you got to all ingredients that are for allergy, so kind of allergy free. So there's really no gluten involved, but we do have mayonnaise that's usually pretty safe. You got to be careful, but we have relish, usually pretty safe. So we have things of that nature. Nothing too crazy either. We want kids to enjoy it. We don't want nothing crazy gross, but
no bad experiences.
Yeah, no bad experiences. We, back in the 90s and early 2000s, it was a very different time. So it was all the things. I mean, what would be like the grossest ingredient? Because I know you've done a blender challenge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we did the Happy Meal.
Oh yeah,
the hamburger, the fries,
yeah,
and the Coke in the blender.
Yes.
We did have a student who it didn't sit well with them.
But we used to have the bucket there.
Yeah.
Right there.
And the crazy thing is, if you're listening to this and kind of new, you're like, what? And it just kind of was like, that's how you did it. That's what you did.
That's right.
And you didn't, it was not considered wrong.
No, not. In fact, parents loved it.
Yes.
They were like, "Our kid threw up. This is amazing." Get pictures. That's what it was. So anyway, so we're doing that, and that's we got another dimension to it. And so we're blindfolding them. We're using the Pick Me app. We're using the wheel.
Okay.
So they're going to see all the ingredients, and they get to ask yes. The leader would ask them yes or no. So they say yes or no right away. And so if they say yes, they don't know what the ingredient is. Yes, they just get asked right off the front, yes or no. Then they say yes, and then we spin the wheel. And if it lands on, I don't know, we got pancake mix. Lands on pancake mix, they said yes, they get the pancake mix. Now, the thing is they're blindfolded, so they have no idea what they said yes to.
Yeah.
But the crowd's going to be watching. They're facing the crowd, and they're going to see everything they're getting, of course, and they're going to be reacting. So that person sitting there, so you have all these kind of layers of tension and excitement and unknowing, and it's just, I think it's going to be either really good or maybe a bust, but it should be pretty good. What do you think?
Well, we'll let you know.
We'll let you actually, you can watch. We have it on, it'll be online on our YouTube channel. Yep, it's all good. Yeah. And Ed students, you can go check us out. But But yeah, and then we have the last game. I made up but didn't make up. I bit off of the game. Is it a fish on DYM? Do you remember? I don't remember who made it. I apologize if I forgot who made it. But it's a good game. It's head, shoulders, knees, cup, but it's using screen LED. We've had other head, shoulders, knees, cup like that too, which is the picture of the head, shoulders, knees, cup. But if it's when a fish pops up on the screen, they have to grab the cup, right?
Okay.
So it's that.
Okay.
But I changed it because you got to make things personal, right? I changed it to, is it a meatball?
That's not right.
And I made you saw the slides, right?
Yeah.
So a meatball, caricature meatball, and so every time it hits a meatball, but we're using the Sidekick app. What is it? Photo Fury. We're using Photo Fury on the Sidekick app, and it's going to go through the photos. And then, of course, we're going to predetermine whether it hits meatball or it's just random pictures of like banana and apple, just food pictures. But when it hits meatball, they pick up the cup, right? It's just head, shoulders, knees, cup. But it's quick. And Photo Fury will give it all that extra layer of excitement because of the noise, like it's going through. And then there's an ice cream, like a scoop of ice cream that looks like a meatball that we threw in there on purpose so that they go for the cup. And they realize, oh, that was the scoop of ice cream.
Right.
So anyway, I think these are good, Todd.
All right. We're about to find out.
We will find out. But anyway, you got a new game.
Yeah. So it's Super Bowl week, right? I mean, as a Jets fan, I don't know if you remember what the Super Bowl weeks are like, but
that was good, man. I have no idea what that is. I wasn't even alive in 1969 when they went to Super Bowl III. That was good. Well done. Well played.
Thank you. I mean, as a Steeler fan, we're pretty familiar.
Yeah, 5.
Then
Super
6.
I'm actually not sad I said 5.
No, but this is one of the things that's crazy. So years ago, I worked with a guy named Jonathan McKee, the Source for Youth Ministry.
Yep.
And then we kind of converted that game to, it was like Super Bowl trivia.
Yeah.
And then we converted it to a DYM game. And so I think it's been over a decade that I've been working on or producing this game like every year for the Super Bowl.
This game better be really good.
I'm really excited about it because it's part trivia. So there's actually a trivia game that you can play, just trivia. There's a prediction game, like who's going to score first, all that kind of stuff. So there's like 2 games in one. There's also you can use it for your Instagram story. So if you're not having a party, but you still want to interact with your students during the game, it's a fun thing to play.
That's a good idea.
All those resources are in there, and that'll be available probably by the time this comes out.
Yeah.
So.
And anytime you're making a game, we always say if you can add layers, like add social media, posting, add anything like that, that'll work. Like listen, you're one of the top games guys in DYM.
I don't know about
that's a fact. I think that's true.
You just said that's a fact.
I think that's a fact.
I think it's true.
I think
so.
Well, you can fact check me.
Yeah.
Okay, it's all good. So anyway, are we talking about something today?
Yeah, man. I think so. We always are talking, and we're talking about the life of youth ministry.
Oh yeah.
Student pastors and what they're kind of struggling with and what it is that's kind of maybe like a drain on their energy or on their soul that seems to cause dryness. And I think one of the things that we struggle with from time to time is just kind of the numbers. And I know we want to talk about like, hey, numbers don't matter. And we get that. We really understand that. But when a student kind of leaves our ministry, there's wounding there that happens. When we have an outreach, like we're going to have tonight for your ministry, and you don't see kids come back, you kind of go, oh, that kind of stings.
Yeah.
And so
it's hard not to take it personal.
Exactly.
Sure. Absolutely.
And so we thought like, hey, let's talk a little bit about follow-up. And you have over the years really kind of fine-tuned and tweaked your follow-up process. And I thought, man, let's just spend some time while we're here on the eve of this follow-up kind of going into action with the group of students that'll be here tonight. Let's talk about that a little bit. And encourage youth leaders who, maybe they're kind of just struggling in that area or they've not done it. They haven't really thought through it. So let's just talk a little bit about it. And so I thought I'd start with the kind of the why question, right? Like why do follow-up, and what was the catalyst, the inspiration for you to kind of put together a little bit more of a solid, structured follow-up process?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, the whole reason why I started doing follow-up ministry is because Doug said so. Like I read Purpose of Youth Ministry like 25, whatever years ago it came out now, and it said to have follow-up ministry. And I was like, well, okay, sure. And of course it was, it was very an infant stage for me. It was usually just, it was just email, right? It was an email to a parent and that was it. Right. And so, and that was really my follow-up strategy. And then sometimes it was, if the parent, I would kind of be outside, and I would follow up with the parent, like, hey, kind of like that on the next week if they came back, right? So hopefully there was another, that was kind of like my second layer level, but that was it for a long time, right? But because Doug said, it mattered that, that we know follow-up ministry is all about helping people know that they matter,
right?
That they're called to belong, right? To something, that we're all called to belong to something, right? And to be a part of community because we're made in that image, right? That triune community.
So let me stop you right there, because I actually think that's way more significant, and I don't want anybody to have missed it. Because I think oftentimes follow-up, it does get a bad rap because it can feel very numbers driven.
Yes.
Right. It can feel like the only reason I'm doing this is to boost our numbers or to see growth numerically. And what you just said, I think, is really significant, that the intent is to make people feel known, right? To make them feel that it was good that I was there. It was important that I was there. So I just didn't want.
No, that was huge.
I think that's huge.
In fact, I love that because it helps people know they're not a commodity.
Yeah.
They're not something they're not someone we're trying to get from, but we're someone we're trying to give to.
Right.
And that's love, right? We're giving away. And so, that's really, the big picture is helping people know they matter. You're called to belong. You're made in an image. You're valuable regard, right? You know what I mean? You have, your value is unchanging. You have an inherent value, and we want them to feel that and know that, feel seen, feel heard, all of that, right?
Yeah.
So follow-up, I think, is the first layer of that, right? And so kind of a big step. I always say follow-up starts in the parking lot.
Yep.
People are deciding whether they matter, whether you've thought of them, whether they're going to come back within the first few moments that they get through the door. Now, granted, you can change their mind with later interaction.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely, we know that. But that first impression makes a difference. I think Disney spends a lot of money, in those things, you know what I mean, for a reason, and that's human nature. But we're not Disney, but we're sincerely saying you matter.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Disney doesn't think people matter. Of course, they're individuals, but anyway, you get the point. So
yeah. So I guess of a big 30,000-foot view, what are some, I don't know, challenges that youth ministries or youth pastors face when it comes to follow-up?
Yeah, I think number one, if you're on your own, if you're on your own as a youth pastor, it's hard. Like, all I can do for my first handful of years, or more than that actually, was just an email, right? And maybe a phone call if I was lucky, right? You know what I mean? Like maybe a phone call follow-up if, it was an email and a phone call follow-up. For a long time, like I said, then maybe I went out the next week as a second layer of made a face-to-face contact with the parent, because obviously follow-up ministry has to involve the parents.
Right.
They're so
again, let me pause you, because you said when you first got here. So just let everybody know how long you've been here,
okay,
and kind of give a little bit of a timeline where, at what point did it become like, I'm really going to give this some attention?
Yeah. So been here 16 years now. I'm going to say within the first 7-8 years, that's kind of what it was. And it just stayed that way because that's, again, I think the other challenge youth pastors have is if it's just you or maybe you and some volunteers, you just have a capacity issue.
100%.
Like you just can't, right? You can't, you're too busy doing the weekly schedule. You're too busy going to games. You're too busy with students. You're too busy formulating a mess, bad word, but, creating a message, what I mean? You have your own time with Jesus. Then you're getting, you have to get your programming. And so it seems like that follow-up just kind of becomes second, third place, not as a priority. It just falls by the wayside a little bit. And I think that's really the biggest challenge.
Yeah. And I think that's really important if you're listening to this, especially if you're kind of new, either in your position or in youth ministry. It takes a long time, think it through, and really kind of do it well. So don't beat yourself up if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing any of that stuff.
Yeah.
You'll get there, right? Just kind of
over here, right?
Keep going. And actually, we're going to, on this one, we're just going to talk a little bit about kind of the why, and then we're going to kind of part 2 is this going to be the how. So, so
kind of show what we do.
But we think it's really important on the why, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Not just we don't want to just give you the tools without the intent or this is why we do that.
Yeah, and then they can make it their own.
Yeah,
because it's got to have you in it. I always say that to my leaders all the time. They ask me if I give them an extra role, if I kind of have them, give them greater responsibility. I say, listen, you know how I do things, because usually they were my former students. I said, but this has got to be you. This has got to be your God-given uniqueness,
Right.
because that's when it works, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's really good.
Yeah. So the why, really good, kind of who initiated it, like kind of what was the catalyst, a little bit of the timeline. I guess one of the questions to ask is, what would you say would be some of the fruit of it, right? Like, have you seen and let's just be honest, let's just talk a little bit about numerical growth. But I mean, numerical growth is a part of ministry. It's not the most important part, but it is a part. So have you seen that? And then have you seen any or heard any like transformational stories from that you could look at and go, man, that's like evidence that we're doing this kind of right or well?
Yeah. I mean, so, right on the front, just as far as follow-up's concerned, like so last year, we always do our yearly review. And numbers tell a story. They're not the story, right? The stories are the individual lives, right? But numbers tell a story. And so numbers matter. I mean, you've heard me in previous podcasts say, names over numbers. Absolutely. But numbers give us a big picture, right, of effectiveness and all those things and what we need to do from a programming and strategy standpoint. And so at this point, I'm going to get some numbers off. Ashley's not here. Ashley's upstairs right now. But the numbers, as I recollect them, they're going to be pretty close, though. From last year, I have this year's numbers, but last year's numbers were we had just over 150 different kids come. Of those 150 different kids, I think it was around the 80 number came back a second time, or maybe a little more than that, because of new kids came back. Of new kids, 80 of them came back a second time, somewhere in that zone, which is a huge number. And then we had an even or close to a number, 70, maybe something just under that, came back 5 times or more, obviously. And so that was another big number. So, and again, I could be off on those. I do have this year's numbers, but I want to save this year's because this year's, we already met those numbers and more in 4 months.
Okay.
But there's another layer, and that's the layer of evangelism and evangelism awareness and the prayer care share that I want to share on another podcast. Okay. But I'll share about that on how being evangelism minded, a heart for the lost, and really cultivating that in our culture and our ministry has changed the game. And the numbers I have this year are they're crazy. And so we're all celebrating in what God is doing. But anyway, but follow-up was the first component, because I said, if you give your kids a heart for evangelism, as they start sharing the gospel and inviting friends, and you get that kind of number come back and you don't have a follow-up ministry, where are they going?
Yes.
They're going to fall by the wayside. So anyway, this is step one. I think. So I hope that helped. I hope that gave, but those numbers were, they were helpful. And they let us know, like, oh, wow, this follow-up ministry. And we added another, that was a full layer of what they're going to see on the next podcast.
Right.
Yeah, we'll share that strategy and what that looked like and why we did everything we did.
So you talked about a little bit about the numbers. Have you been able to kind of see any, what we would call spiritual fruit or transformational stories?
Yeah, so we have a lot of individual stories of kids who've been transformed. And we just got this message in last week. And this is a public school teacher who sent this message to one of our leaders and says, he said this, hey, by the way, I know many of your Edge kids from school. Those kids are very on fire for the Lord and speak someone's calling me right now. Hey, Steve Finn. Steve Finn, he's the guy at Chestnut Mountain Ranch. Great guy. I'm on the board there. But anyway, he goes, I can't talk. So anyway, so it says this, I'll start over. Apologize for that. Hey, by the way, I know many of your Edge kids from school. Those kids are very on fire for the Lord and speak very highly of you all. Keep doing what you're doing because you're helping to mold great young people. That was a story from a public school teacher who's recognizing that in our kids. And so, with follow-up, really, if kids keep showing up, we say this all the time, and you might have heard this, they keep growing up. And so it's just natural. It's just a natural byproduct. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, you bear much fruit, but apart from me, you do nothing. And so if kids keep coming back to, I believe, just a healthy community, a supportive community where they're encouraged. They have a small group leader who knows them, knows their name, knows their story, knows their family. Man, that's going to make for life change.
Yeah.
And so that's why, and follow-up's a big part of that.
No, that's so great. What a encouragement to get a message like that from
it was
a public school teacher. So let's kind of put ourselves in the shoes of a youth worker who does not have what they would say is a strong follow-up. Right. Ministry or kind of aspect to their ministry. What advice would you give them to someone who, again, doesn't have one or would say it's not great?
Yeah, I would say start small, start simple.
Okay.
Start with the email and text message. maybe a small little gift. We'll talk about that in the second episode. Start small. Start what you can do. I always say do what you can do.
Yeah, right.
Do it well and do it consistently.
Okay.
So start small and be consistent, and you get it down. And what it does is it becomes part of your natural rhythm, because that's what we're talking about. As leaders, we have a rhythm. And if our rhythm gets off, it filters down. And so make sure you've developed this with your team and yourself especially. It becomes part of your rhythm, because then it's not hard to next year add another layer. And that's what me and Ashley ended up doing when I got Ashley on board as an admin and a helper in this area. That was the first thing I gave her: follow-up and leader, and being able to, like, a leader liaison, another leader to the leaders. And that was our two big focuses, because I knew that's what I needed. And I always had an idea what follow-up ministry would look like. So it wasn't like it was a blank slate. I had a book I gave her. You know what I mean? Like, I knew where we wanted to go. We just couldn't go there, because the rest of the ministry would what?
Right.
Struggle.
Right.
And so there's
right.
priorities.
Right.
And so there's tiers. So, man, when she came on board, I said, here's a book on follow-up. Let's go. And then every year we just added one step, and then we made it part of our rhythm. And the students acclimated too. Right. My leaders acclimated. Okay. And then from the beginning I said, okay, this is this step, but we have another step in mind. Just be ready for it. So we were always prepping. We always knew where we wanted to go next. And I hope that, and that's important, by the way.
Yeah.
Know your big plan overall, but start small.
Yeah. So let's unpack that just a little bit.
Sure.
Let's give them like basic step one, where they're at. What would that look like? And then, as you mentioned already, we're going to talk about your full strategy and what it looks like today, but give them kind of, here's what I mean by start small, right? Like, I'd be like, oh, what is that, the email, or is it something else? Give us like here's the start small. You can do this week.
Yeah. So, like, create some kind of sign in somehow, a QR code. You can use Typeform. You can use Google Sheets. You can create a QR code and just have some kind of sign up. It can be paper. We did paper for years. They filled out this little paper. They handed it in. Yeah. Whatever works for you, wherever you're at in your context, start there. And then from that, you get that. And then that Monday, create like, okay, on Mondays, I'm doing emails. Like Monday, I'm going to send emails, or I'm going to send a text message, or both. We're redundant in ours. We like redundancy. We send both and say, hey, we sent you an email saying this, this, and this, right?
Right.
Then the email is kind of more obviously comprehensive. And so, or it's like, I'm going to do this on Tuesday. And then, I think everyone could send a text to someone, to a kid. I think so I would maybe start small there. Emails and a text. Hey, on Wednesday, send it. Hey, we loved seeing you on Sunday, or Wednesday, or Sunday you send it, or Saturday, right? Yeah. Based on when you meet, Wednesdays or Sundays. I'm just talking about our context. And say, hey, love seeing you, so-and-so. Can't wait to see you this week. Hope you can make it. And then that's, again, what are we establishing there? It's also a relationship, connection, trust. All those things are being built, and follow-up is the start of it. So does that make sense? Is there anything you think I'm missing there, or want me to add or fill in?
No, it does. So I would say this. So the last two places where I was a youth pastor, it's very important for me to at least get an introduction, right? A new student comes and they fill out that card, or they're signing in for the first time. On the size of your ministry, you might not see that student. Yeah. And so to get a text message from a stranger is different than, even if I just said hello. Yep. I could say, it was really great to meet you. Looking forward to seeing you again. And so we would try to send that out. Like, I would try to send that out within 24 hours of youth group. And then sometime that week, it was also the email, because you can put more information in email, right? Yeah. Hey, here's our social media, and all of that stuff, because like, our kids opening their emails, or they reading their emails, and it's that always fluctuates, right? It's always like, you always hear, oh, email's dead, and then you hear, nope, email's alive and well. And so I think, but if you're listening to this and you're going, I don't have a strong follow-up right now, that's a great step one. Yeah. That's a great place. Text within 24 hours, email that first week. And then, and then if there is some, and I think we'll talk about this a little bit more, where I was never great at tracking, right? Like, I really worked hard at that, because then you want to watch, does that student come back? And then when they come back, and then at some point they feel like now they're connected. Yeah. They start to feel like this is their youth group. Yep. And so
that's huge.
So I think, wherever you're at, whatever level of kind of quality you would say your follow-up is, that's a great step one. And we definitely would want you to come back whenever this next one comes out and watch kind of part two, to go, okay, so give me more of the strategy. Give me kind of the big picture. Give me some goals to shoot for, and how I can totally transform our follow-up ministry of our youth group.
I love it.
So, all right. Hey, let me just say one last thing. again, if you're just kind of a little overwhelmed by even step one, just be encouraged, take it slow. I think, as James said, be consistent, start small. You can do this, and you can find it yourself leading a very effective follow-up ministry at your youth group. So what I'd love to do is just want to encourage you, and I'd love to pray for you. So let's just do that real quick, and then we'll see you next time. God, we just thank you so much for the opportunity that we have to lead ministries, and God, the thing that you've called us to do. And so as we gather here today, as we think of youth pastors all over this country who are listening to this, who may be struggling or maybe they're even getting pressure from above to do a better job of follow-up. God, we ask that this would be helpful and that it would encourage their heart and bless their soul. God, thank you again for this opportunity. We ask that you would bless them as they're listening, and that they would be able to begin to put some of these things in place and see fruit. God, we ask this all in your name. Amen.
Amen. Todd, this was much better being
So
in
fun.
person with you, and always great being with all of you. And until next time, happy soul keeping.